This is Penny Keener, Stampin' Up! Independent Demonstrator and the original KeenerINKer. Today we're going to be doing the mini messages stamp set and die. This stamp set is actually one stamp and it has lots of fun phrasing in it. And then there's a die that coordinates that can die cut it out all in one crank. So to get started, what I'm using is the Stamparatus today. I love using the Stamparatus for this because if it does not stamp in one area or it's not complete, you can, it's still in the same position, so you can reapply the ink or just press down harder in that area. I'm using a piece of basic white and it measures 5.5 by 6.5 inches. And I've used my grid sheet here so you can see where I have my stamp mounted, and so you can see where it's going to be on the paper. And the blue line is where I have for this to fit on here, so that I know that all the phrases will stamp out on one time. I'm using the Memento Basic Black ink for this particular one. I will tell you when I was using this with our regular classic stamp pads, that because the stamp pads ink so well, sometimes I would get ink down in between the words. So for those pads, make sure you just gently tap it. But for this one, it works really well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push down, because again, it's one stamp and it's a really large stamp. I'm going to lift it up. I'm going to see if there's any areas that need a little more ink. I can see that right there could use a little more. Maybe a little on my heart. So I'm going to re-ink those areas. And because it's on my Stamparatus, perfect positioning every time. Ta-da! All right, so what I'm going to do is take this off my Stamparatus, set that aside. Now I'm going to use my die cut and embossing machine to cut this out. So I have my base plate, my number 2 plate, a number 3 plate. Then I have my cardstock and my die. And again, the die does it all at one time, which is fantastic. So that as I'm cranking this through, that it doesn't shift, I'm going to use some washi tape to hold it in place. It's one of the reasons my cardstock is just a little bit bigger than the stamp, so I have some area. I try not to put the washi tape inside this area because sometimes it will rip the cardstock because there's so much pressure being put on by the die cut machine. So I'm going to do it on the outside edge at the top and the bottom, and that will help hold it into place and it won't shift on me. And then my top plate, which is the plate number 3. So I'm going to crank this through. Because this is a big die, you may hear that crackling sound, and that's okay. Although it does sound like you're breaking something, but in this particular case, you are not. All right, so now I have all these phrases stamped and die cut all in one shot. It also has a few shapes here, which I like using my take your pick tool to get those out, because they do like to stay in those little areas. All right, so now what do you do with this? Well, obviously, when you're making a card, you're probably only going to be using one phrasing on a card. So I like to have these done ahead of time, then I can make a beautiful flower card or whatever I want to do, and then grab whatever wording I need at the last minute. So in order to store these and keep them organized, I'm using a tackle box. Karen Decker actually came up with this idea, and I thought it was a fantastic way to separate them, and you can use this for many wording stamp sets. So I did swap out some of the labels that she had, but this has a place for every piece in here. So again, I can have some cards made ahead of time and then just grab the wording that I need for that particular project and just add it on with dimensionals. So here's another card that I made. I actually use that as both a background stamp and the wording stamp on this particular card. So How does Lord of the Rings Sauron send his mini messages? On an iPad. Please check out my website and subscribe to my channel for quick videos on how you can be a KeenerINKer too.